Okay, so the thing is, I actually agree that it's probably better for us women to also join the mandatory military service in Taiwan if they feel the need to extend it for men in the first place. Hey guys, it's yet another thing here on YouTube, and welcome to Taiwanese Reports, where I report on news mostly related to the cross-strait relations from a Taiwanese perspective and share with you how the general Taiwanese public is reacting and discussing about these topics. So today I would like to focus on the biggest news and the most heated discussion currently going on in Taiwan, which is the extension of the military service. It has been decided basically men who are born after 2005 will have to serve in the military for a year, which is extended from the previous 4 months. So prior to this, earlier this month, Joe Biden signed the National Defense Authorization Act, which would provide Taiwan $10 billion of military support for the next 5 years, and also some other debts that Taiwan needs to pay back. So this news on its own concerned a lot of people already, and then shortly after this, China sent 71 warplanes around and into the Taiwan territory within 24 hours, which is the biggest amount we have seen so far. And then a few days after that, the Taiwanese government came out and confirmed that the mandatory military service will be extended to a year from previous 4 months. Not to assert that the extension is directly connected to these events, but just to give you a basic timeline on what has been happening in this month leading to this point. So naturally, many people are quite infuriated upon hearing this news because for one, nobody wants war, but everything the Taiwanese government is doing right now seems like they're just keep provoking China and pushing Taiwan into a war, and thus the need for longer military service. And secondly, the mandatory military service in Taiwan has long been known for a complete waste of time. Like, you don't really learn anything in it, you don't really get any skills needed for the war in it. So according to people who has gone through this military service, you're kind of just in there to be tortured and bullied by someone who is of a higher rank of you. So even before it was seen as something quite useless, it's basically just there to waste 4 months of your life for men, and now they're extending it to an entire year. So of course nobody wants to waste an entire year of their life doing absolutely nothing other than being humiliated for no reason. But then the backlash really took a turn when some voices came out to support this policy, and specifically these voices were coming from women, even though they're not really affected by this policy whatsoever. So understandably, these triggered a lot of the men, and ultimately this turned into a huge internet war in between the two genders, which I would personally describe as entitled Karens versus misogynists. So let me explain. It all started when, as I said, some of these Karens went on the internet and comment under these news of the extension of the military service to voice their support for this policy. So they would say something like, this is a very good policy because we need to protect Taiwan, or some even said that you don't really become a real man until you join the military service. So essentially what these people are saying is basically that men need to die for the country, and meanwhile I will just stay there being safe and wait for a possible independence built on these men's dead bodies. So it does come off as extremely selfish. I do not agree with them one bit. I really don't think they think it through before they speak. So reasonably, a lot of men were really upset by this. So they also went on the internet, made a few posts with some really good clapbacks at the entitled Karens, and ultimately this leads to a really heated debate on whether or not Taiwanese women should also join the mandatory military service for a year like men, which I actually personally agree with under a few conditions, but more on that later. So at the beginning, definitely there were a lot of people making really good, very constructive arguments from both sides, whether they are in support or against this proposal. But slowly, what started off as an anger towards these entitled Karens kind of turns into a bigger hate towards all Taiwanese women. So some posts and comments even makes it seem like the whole extension of the military service is all the women's fault, even though it was not our decision to extend the military service. There weren't even a referendum to begin with. So this is when you will start seeing a lot of misogynistic hate comments flooding the internet, basically repeating the same sexist joke and even bringing the comfort women into the conversation. So you get what I mean, like they're not really rational, they're not really here to have conversations or fight for their rights or fight for gender equality. Essentially, they're just using the other gender as their punching bag for the problems they have to face in their life, and also using these entitled Karens to justify their misogynistic behaviors. So over the past few days, it has just been a complete mess on the internet. Every day I would go onto this platform for Taiwanese people, and the algorithm would suggest me more posts on this topic, with 80% of them being super irrational and basically just mindless hate. Okay, so the thing is, I actually agree that it's probably better for us women to also join the mandatory military service in Taiwan if they feel the need to extend it from men in the first place. But it shouldn't be for the reason that because men are going to waste a year of their life in the military service. So based on gender equality, absolutely everybody should waste a year of their life doing this, but more from the perspective that when war comes, absolutely everyone should be prepared. Not just men, but also women should probably also learn something to survive the war. So as I said, a lot of people have been making some really constructive arguments regarding this topic, so I would like to share with you one that I personally really agree with. So one of the main reasons why women are now not in the mandatory military service is that it is true that biologically speaking, most women are physically weaker than men. So it might be very difficult to ask all women to go through the same training in the military service as men. However, there's a really good suggestion that we can develop a separate training specifically for women. So let's say a big proportion of the women might not be able to fight in the battlefield the same way men do because of physical conditions, but there are still things that we can learn, such as how to use basic weapons or weapon assembly or basic medications to help with the injuries, and also self-defense, all of which will very likely come in handy during the war situation. So I really think that this is such a good idea that if they actually develop a system like this, I would definitely like to join, even if it's not mandatory. Because as in today, everybody in Taiwan is constantly so worried about this possible invasion, but nobody knows what to do. Like, I really don't know what to do if the war really comes, so I would definitely really love to learn some things that kind of increase the chance of me surviving. And essentially, if only men are being prepared for the war and not women, then when war actually comes, all of us would just be in the population that needs to be protected. So when you think about it, over half of the population will become liability. That is quite scary to think about, especially considering that China already had so much more population than Taiwan. So I do think that it could be helpful if we will learn something that, I don't know, make us less of a liability, or at least we can try to survive on our own during the war. Okay, so that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, so please leave a like if you did, and please subscribe for more Taiwanese Reports videos. And please also consider supporting me on Patreon if you want more Taiwan-related contents that are only exclusive for the members there. I also provide mentoring lessons over there where we get to talk face-to-face in real time, so if you're interested, please definitely check it out. I will leave a link in the description. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.